Hanif, owner of the United Goalkeeping Alliance, currently coaching at Robert Morris University women's soccer, part of the United States Youth Soccer Region East goalkeeping staff, and director of goalkeeping for PA West. On with us today, we have Hanif, we have Brett Rosenberger, we have Andreas Papakostas, we have Jeff Tackett, and Michael Kappas, who will be joining us a little bit late. Gentlemen, I'm going to read just a couple of quick lines, and then I'm going to ask you for not only your quick introduction, but also for your 45 to 60-second 2 cents on the following. Currently, most college institutions invest in GK coaches as a volunteer coach or through stipend pay. These same GK coaches on a volunteer basis dedicate the same amount of time in season, if not more, same coaching hours during the season, as well as in the off season. Compared to other coaches or compared to other sports where there are quote unquote unique positional skill sets and positional coaches, baseball with a pitching coach, hockey, lacrosse, and field hockey with goaltending. I'd like to know your 2 cents on that and where we should take it and where it should be. I would like to start with, if I may, Mr. Andreas Papakostas.
I'm going to give you my 5 cents. So, that's a great topic. Andreas Papakostas here with Olympic GK Academy here in Chicago, also in Arizona, and really focusing on developing youth goalkeepers all the way up to the collegiate level. And this topic I think it's a perfect timing for it, especially when the game has evolved. But, when you take a look at wanting the best goalkeepers in your collegiate level, you're not going to win any big-time games without that key goalkeeper. And I think it's time, if we want to develop the goalkeepers, we want to continue to progress the goalkeepers in college and into the pro. I think it's important to have a specialized coach as one of the coaches who strictly focuses on the goalkeepers, which is part of the defensive system as well as the entire system. But I think it's time to give goalkeeper coaches a career in the collegiate level. We're demanding a lot from them, but the pay is very low, and very few are able to volunteer like maybe in the past because there's other avenues. And we're missing a big opportunity for these goalkeepers to progress in their play. So I'm excited, and that's why I'm here, and thank you for having me here.
Cool. Excellent. Welcome, sir. Mr. Jeff Tackett, may I ask you to follow?
That was a hard follow right there. So my name is Jeff Tackett. So I am located in Southern California. I'm the director of Southern California School of Goalkeeping, as well as the director of coaches for Empire Soccer Club in here. And then obviously in the college world, I've been coaching college for almost 25 years off and on. Right now I'm not currently. And so this is a great topic for me because, yes, I've been on both sides of all divisions and seen the importance that we have as the goalkeeper coach, not only just for the specific position, but just most of us that play in the game have been a coach when we play. So we're in charge of our whole team, and we know how to coach the whole team. And so we are an asset for any college program, not just the specific goalkeeper, but to be able to do sessions with the defenders or make sure we understand tendencies for forward. Just the whole thing. Don't want to get too much in that, but we definitely are better off than just saying, hey, what do you think about our goalkeeper? And to hear that there's so many coaches that are on staff that are not full-time or not paid at all, or are paid in certain other ways in camps or at local clubs it's concerning. And I've seen it, like I said, for 20 years, and now I would love it to somehow get some type of change. So I'm here for the discussion. It's going to be a great one.
Cool. Thank you, Jeff. Ali, may I follow with you, please?
All right. My name's Hanif. I'm currently the assistant and goalkeeper coach at Illinois State University. I'm also the director of goalkeeping with FC Central Illinois. And my couple of cents on this piece is I've kind of gone up the pathway of going from being a part-time goalkeeper coach at a collegiate level to now becoming full-time. And you'd be very surprised that some of right now in the women's game, the top 50 schools in the country, I'd say at least half of them don't have goalkeeper coaches, or don't have full-time goalkeeper coaches. And a lot of that's relied on volunteers, or it's relied on someone who's not positionally trained to be in that position to coach. The other piece is I'm sometimes skeptical of somebody who's just finished up as a senior and gets transitioned into that role as a quote-unquote goalkeeper coach without any actual coaching experience. And that has its own ups and downs. I get why it happens. I get from a culture standpoint, etc. But from a coaching standpoint, it can be difficult. And then the last thing for this discussion for me is going to be the coaching license side of it. US Soccer have not had a recognized goalkeeping license in, I think we're going on 7 years, maybe 8. They have done a kind of just test run of one that never really fully succeeded. And United Soccer coaches, unfortunately, don't do enough goalkeeping licenses. They are the coaching association for the US, but I think maybe run 1 to 2 licenses a year, which just isn't suitable for what we're trying to do.
Awesome. We're going to revisit a lot of those topics, Alec, that you just mentioned. So be prepared, my friend.
Yeah.
Last but not least, in addition to Michael Kappas, is Brett Rosenberger. Brett.
Brett Rosenberger, out in the DC Baltimore area. I'm the North America director of Magellan International Sport Academy. Underneath that, we have two components. One is Azteca, which is a residential academy. And then the second one is Academy 14, which is kind of our outreach consultant stuff. We go out and work with clubs, colleges, pro teams, that kind of stuff. I'm also the head coach of a pro team here in the area, in the DC Baltimore area. So that's currently what I'm doing. I've been a college coach in the past, similar to Jeff, off and on for probably 20 years in some capacity or another. Coached at most of the levels, coached overseas in the academies and then the professional ranks. So I've kind of seen all the players, but specifically kind of how keepers are seen from all kinds of angles. So yeah, it's a great topic. Yeah, my 2 cents worth is, of course. It's a specialized position. You'll see it's one of the harder, positions to recruit for, whether you're talking about club or college, to get someone who's good at it. So, I think if other sports can justify having some specialized coaches and it seems to, carry weight, then it should naturally flow over to this sport as well. So 100% on board.
Awesome. Well said, everybody. I'm going to dive just a quick, every question I make, I'm going to go a little deeper. And Andreas, I'm going to start this first question with you, if I may. I'm going to read something again real quickly. The NCAA allows Division I. We're going to start with the highest level, in my mind. Can we agree the highest level of amateur soccer in the United States is NCAA Division I? There are others that are comparable, but let's just use that as a reference if we could. The NCAA allows Division I coaching staff on the men's and women's soccer teams a maximum of 3 full-time paid staff members. All Division I conferences do not maximize this standard. Some only allow for 2 full-time paid college coaches on staff, while other positions are filled through a volunteer basis, which in this case we're using as the goalkeeper coach. We're seeing as the goalkeeper coach. Andreas, Jeff mentioned that this is a concern. Why?
Well, it's a concern because, number one, you already know the second coach is going to be an assistant coach. Okay, so now we got a full-time coach and we got an assistant coach. And that's pretty much it if you're at a school that only hires 2. If you're a school that hires 3, you're looking at another assistant coach that hopefully can do goalkeeping. I don't see a lot of schools that have 3 paid employees that has a strictly goalkeeper coach. And again, you're going back into, I'm 50-50 on into, to Jeff's point too, that we're not just, we're in a specialized position. But at the same time, we have to incorporate that specialized position within the team. So I understand the assistant coach being also the goalkeeping coach, But I also think that there's room to talk about a goalkeeper coach strictly focusing on the goalkeepers, whether they incorporate, obviously, the defense, obviously what they should. But I don't understand why there is no talk of a full-time paid coach that strictly focuses on goalkeeping and not, hey, the head coach is not going to be there, so my goalkeeper coach is going to run the sessions for the field players, leaving the goalkeepers out, which I hear all the time. So what's wrong with 3 paid coaches, head coach, assistant coach, goalkeeper coach?
Fair point. Jeff, continue with that. This was your main point right off the bat. I want to hear you elaborate on Andreas's point, but continue with your own.
Well, yeah, no, I'm, like I said, I think it's when I stated the basic part of we could give more. I think it's because it's sometimes, like I said, I agree with Andreas where he said that you're going to have the second assistant is usually going to be the field player coach. I mean, if you even get into the logistics of it all, as a head coach, you're usually either very technical or you're very great with administration. You're not usually great at both. So what you do is you then find the assistant coach that does what you don't do well, right? And so whatever that might be, if it is they need a technical coach, they're going to bring in their technical side. And now you have to wait, and you're down the line to wait if you're able to get a position as the true goalkeeper coach. But at that point with NCAA, if you're out with the 3, then you're not going to get a paid position. So for me, it's rough to see. I kind of have an idea, a different look on it, just based off of, I guess you could say, like safety issues. Like you're looking at NCAA, let's just say different sports that have less on their roster. Any sport, we'll just say any sport that has less on their roster, we know they have more staff on their teams and they're paid. We have anywhere from 25 to 30 on our roster, and we really only have 3 paid coaches that have to oversee and maintain just the safety of the players. So you even look at that point where if we have to have that angle of, wait, these 3 coaches are going to be responsible for 30 men or women, where another sport, they have 14 to be after, and they have 6 assistants, right? So where is NCAA getting their reasoning other than they can maybe afford it because of the pay? But it's just, there's so many variables I could go into that yeah, the round table is going to be a long one because I have a lot. But
keep coming. That's all right.
There's different angles on it, but I definitely think that we need to have the point where we do need to be that specialized, and there should be that 4th assistant, not even just because we deserve it as a profession, but just I think having that large of a team, there should be more members to oversee the program than just 3. So
yeah, I'd even say let's get all Division I schools up to 3, or all conferences to agree to the 3. Again, I don't think all conferences. I know all conferences don't kind of follow that rule. Brett, Alley, safety concerns. Jeff just mentioned something about safety concerns with the student athletes' welfare. What are your take on that? Is it needed?
No, it is. I mean, we talk about it all the time. I mean, amongst other coaches as well. When you've got a group of 30 at the Division I level, I mean, if you could go to there's certain D1, D2 schools that have got higher rosters. That have got up to 40 players, 45 players, whatever it might be, and you're still limited by 3 staff. And then if you bring in a director of operations, might help that out a little bit, but not as much as you need it to, because they can't be involved in a coaching capacity. And that also depends if your director of operations is a graduate assistant or very rarely a full-time member of staff. And then you've got the volunteer assistant if you're lucky enough to have one as well. The numbers just never balance out. And I think to add to that, I sit on 2 sides about being a goalkeeper coach when you want to be specific to the position. But I do think that goalkeeper coaches tend to pigeonhole themselves a little bit. I think in this day and age right now, and in the era we live in right now, you have to be able to do a little bit more than just be a goalkeeper coach, especially at the Division I level. Like, you have to be able to be somewhat familiar with video analysis. You have to be somewhat familiar with opposition scouting. You have to be somewhat familiar with working with the defensive unit or the midfield unit or the forward unit. You have to have a few more quivers to your bow and arrow to really be able to be in a full-time position, because at the end of the day, any program is going to be willing to take someone who can do a little bit more or can do a couple of different things versus just be able to do one. So that's just something, that's one side. I've had to learn to get good at other things. Video analysis, opposition scouting is something I've had to learn to get good at, because that helps me in being in a full-time role that I'm in now.
Cool. Brett, I'm going to ask you to add your 2 cents to the comments that you just heard, and then I'm going to start my next question with you.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's hitting on, angles that should be addressed, could be addressed. I know some of the schools that I've been at, I've brought up just some of the math of the equation, saying, look, soccer teams at some programs, like I was saying, 30, 40 kids, the soccer program may have somewhere between, say, 4 to 8 scholarships probably in tow. So that means you've got 20 to 25 kids that are coming in paying some version of full pop. Obviously, they're getting academics as well, but you're comparing that now to almost general population students as far as revenue to the school. And one of the things that we've tried to point out to the school is say, look, I mean, a lot of these soccer teams are bringing in the equivalent of what some of their dedicated recruiters are doing, and as far as revenue to the school. So it's not that hard to justify another 15,000, 20,000. I mean, you could go through it and find comparables all over campus saying, here's how we've dedicated other resources, math department, science department, so forth and so on. So it's, from a numbers standpoint, I've never really understood why we don't have one, because just the numbers alone will justify enough revenue to fund that kind of position. So yeah, 100% on those things. And I've been on the other side. I've been the guy, doing the head coaching, where I've had to do the calculus of, here's the resources that we're given. And usually the starting point was never enough to justify giving it to a goalkeeping coach, and I'm one of the guys on the other side saying, we need to have them. So a lot of times you've been forced to try to come in and you do everything you can to try to help them justify the commitment to it. But it's not a position that I think head coaches should be put in. And then, of course, once they're there, if they don't really have an affinity for the goalkeeping, then they're not really fighting for that. They may be fighting for video equipment or things like this. Once again, kind of to Ali's point. So it's a cat and mouse game a little bit on both sides. I agree. I think goalkeeping coaches sometimes do pigeonhole themselves. I think that they can lend a little bit more, and that's kind of across the board. You've got to see assistant coaches can't just be an assistant coach anymore. Even head coaches can rarely be just a head coach. You've got to be able to bring a couple skills to the table. So I don't have any problem with that at all. I think that's any coach. And the goalkeepers naturally have such a tactical acumen for the game because of the positioning, because of where they stand. So some of the things like video analysis and things are kind of a natural segue for some of that built up, repository of experiences. So I think there's some ways to manage it, but for me, it's 2 different questions. There are ways to navigate the playing field as it is now, and then there's the other discussion saying, should this playing field be this way to begin with? And I think they're 2 different discussions. But I think there's enough arguments, you can come at it from enough different angles that you could easily justify the funding of at least the potential of even if it was even part-time, but part-time or full-time goalkeeping coach, so you can bring in that specialty. Yeah, 100%.
Michael, I'd like to do a quick introduction, just your years with college experience, where you are now, and then I got a pointed question. I'm going to put you on the spot right off the bat, sir.
So I'm Mike Kappas. I'm currently I'm a volunteer coach for Old Dominion University on the women's program. I'm the goalkeeper coach there. And I'm also the goalkeeper director at Virginia Rush.
Oh, thank you, sir. So we've been talking for the last few minutes about, writing it down. Division I, we have 3 we have 3 full-time coaches that are allowed Division I level for men and women's soccer. Some conferences don't even get up there. Some conferences only support just hiring 2 and keeping that their standard within their conference. We talked about the concerns for that and why that's a concern. My question for you is, there are people out there who believe, and I understand this and hear it, but that's where people go to cut their teeth. That's where people go to get their experience. People right out of college who are looking to get in the coaching game, excuse me. They look for those opportunities, and those opportunities are given to them frequently because they are volunteer-free assignments. Michael, what's your take on that?
So I understand both ways, right? So I understand the fact that, you got a kid coming right out of college. Hey, he needs the experience. Let's get him in here in this program as a volunteer coach, so he can build his resume. So I understand that. And then, a lot of colleges, I know there's some other local colleges in the area. What they do is they'll try to get their guys that are volunteering to come and help out the club so they can make some cash, some money. So if it's a young kid right out of college, I understand that, and I think that's okay, because at the same time, you have to build the experience, and what a best way to do it while you're in college, right? Because playing and coaching is two different things. Not every good player becomes a good coach, right? And not every every good coach was a player at some point. So I think going in as a volunteer in the beginning, as a young coach, I think that's okay. But I feel like more times than none, you don't find that as often. Like, I know, I've been coaching for the last 15, 16 years. And, in the college level, I've only been there this is my first year with the college level. But the only reason why I've turned down other opportunities was because it was all volunteer. And at the end of the day, when I have a family, when I have to raise a family and bills and everything, and I can't be doing volunteer work. Now you're going to say, why did I do it with ODU this year? I did it because I felt like if I'm going to change something, or if I'm going to ever be able to get into the college level, I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to get that volunteer, get the hours, and then hopefully down the road I can maybe get a paid position, whether it's full-time or part-time. So,
Andreas, I know you're chopping at the bit. Go.
Chopping at the bit. Well, it's really just going back to Ali when he was saying, we want that volunteer coach, but at the same time, are they really equipped? That senior that gets hired to, when he graduates, to get hired to be that volunteer coach, are they really equipped to develop that junior goalkeeper, or to helping is one thing, developing is another thing. So now we're going from a goalkeeper role, even if they were the best goalkeeper for that university, we're going from that goalkeeper role to now the coaching role. And I totally agree with Michael. There's getting that resume. Can that resume be put somewhere else? Now, because we're strictly talking about changing the landscape of college, and getting a paid position, there's a difference between an experienced goalkeeper coach and a person who's coming in from a volunteer basis. To me, when I look at it, and again, I could be totally wrong because I don't coach at the college game. There could have been opportunities I could have, but I would have to leave a lot of money to be able to get into that position. And the exchange sometimes, like you said, Michael, is, when you're feeding your family and you're paying the bills, you got to make sure that it makes sense also for you too. But I sometimes look at volunteer coaching at the collegiate level when there's so much money that it's involved. And when you take, like Brett said, when you take a look at the numbers that we bring in from a college soccer numbers perspective, sometimes even just over 32, 34 players, and you're asking for a volunteer coach, you're telling me I don't value that goalkeeper position as much. That's how I read it. Because if you did, you would want goalkeeping to be, you can't ask to have a great goalkeeper and a progression of goalkeeping, but yet we don't take a look at the profession that actually develops it, mentors it, and guides it. And that's where I see the I guess the discrepancy and why I'm involved or would love to be involved, and how do I help escalate or be a part of changing the landscape so we get goalkeepers, that coaches that get paid at the collegiate level because of the value that they bring from a coaching perspective, not from a player perspective.
And I'll argue, to your point, Andreas, that if you, to Ali's point too, if you bring someone, let's say, who's a senior and then bring them onto the coaching staff as that volunteer goalkeeper coach, are they even a coach or are they a trainer? Right? Like, are they just going down and working on their basic techniques, and then when they come back to the team, the other assistant coach takes over from there? So are they even getting a coach in this? And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But, and then my second question is, then who's losing? And in my opinion, the goalkeepers at the highest level in the amateur soccer in the United States, the goalkeepers themselves, they're the ones losing because they're not getting the proper coaching. Because we're
Can I share something real quick to that, Erik?
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'll share this out of not just out of speculation, but out of just experience. And I'm not going to mention names. I'm not going to mention, the universities and stuff. But we've had kids that were promised by the universities that there's going to be goalkeeper training. Now, a lot of these goalkeepers think, okay, professional goalkeeper training, right? It's the collegiate level, it's D1 level, to only find out that it is inconsistent, no plan towards their training session, or it is a volunteer graduate. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm putting those people down. I'm just telling you the landscape that I hear. And it becomes disheartening because these high-level goalkeepers are looking not just to play at the high level, but they want to continue to develop and learn and soak up so they can get to increase the chances that they can get drafted or play at that pro level. And 1 year at that age plays a significant part in the development of that goalkeeper. And so that's why, again, personally for me, I'm not against a volunteer. Just know what you're going to get when you're getting a graduate goalkeeper who's going to be the goalkeeper trainer for that high-level goalkeeper recruit that we're looking to save a lot of games and take us to the championship game.
Yep. Jeff, Brett, Ali, jump in, man.
One thing to add that's kind of a spin-off, but it's almost an indirect confirmation of that. So in our residential academy, we will have essentially gap year kids, roughly that age of kids, and then younger. The gap year kids, we're seeing a huge influx, and especially applications from goalkeepers, because they're starting to become aware of the alternative. I could be a freshman, go over to college ABC. I'm probably going to sit number one. I'm probably not really going to get the training that is either being told to me or that I know isn't there. And so the alternative is I could come to a gap year, play and train daily 10 months out of the year for at least another year and get training. And so you're seeing, like, for us, when we say, that could kind of apply to everybody, but I am seeing from our perspective, we're seeing a disproportionate interest from goalkeepers than the field players. So it's almost a confirmation that awareness is starting to kind of filter down into the the pre-college kids. So and you're starting to see programs, not just like ours, but you're seeing kind of these gap year programs are starting to spring up all over the place because there's a market for it. There are kids that are definitely seeing this as a viable alternative. So I think you're going to see more. You're going to see more of these programs, and some are really good, some aren't. But the point is what's driving it is part of this need that's slowly kind of getting out to the kids. So yeah, 100%.
To add to that as well, I'll give you guys an example. Again, not naming names or anything like that. There is a program that comes to mind when we have this discussion that extremely well funded, extremely well looked after program, and I just can't get the reason why they've never had a goalkeeper coach, and they've ended up turning over. In the last 2 years, they turned over 6 goalkeepers, signed in, committed, and then transferred out within their freshman or sophomore year. Now, even though they're at a nationally ranked program, that didn't offset them enough to go, I'm still not getting the training I want, even though I'm in this unbelievable environment. I've got every resource I need, except to me, what is the most important resource is having a goalkeeper coach, and those kids transferred out. So think about that for a second. When you've had 6 to 8 goalkeepers who have been at the top of their classes, have been extremely talented individuals who have played ECNLG, whatever, could have gone to other programs and made a different impact. Have gone into this program and then transferred out within their first or second year, realizing that they're never going to get what they're hoping they would get, considering the school has everything except the goalkeeper coach. Another program that comes to mind as well had a very talented goalkeeper coach as a volunteer. He quite, made a name for himself. Quite quickly realized that it was just never going to happen. Even though this program is, again, another extremely well-funded program, it just never happened for him to be full-time. And that just depends on the head coach's priorities. Like we've talked about before, it depends on what the head coach wants. Even if you can be one of the most well-funded programs in the country, doesn't mean the head coach is going to go, even though I have the money and I can afford to bring in this position, I'm still not going to do it because it's not what I value. I can just offset it with a volunteer, or I can offset it with a senior goalkeeper that's graduating, and I'll just bring them in as a volunteer position. My problem with when you're bringing in a senior goalkeeper who's just graduating and to come and be a trainer, they're not a coach. They're just not. There's no matter what title you give them, they're not a coach, because they just don't know how to develop the goalkeeper. They'll just do the drills that they've done without any context or meaning behind it. They'll just go on YouTube, whatever it might be, and be doing training drills and not be doing coaching. And that then becomes then you're wondering why my goalkeeper is developing bad habits, why my goalkeeper is not progressing the way that, why they're not consistent, why is my goalkeeper injured, why maybe he's going to be overtraining, etc., from just ridiculous drills or a ridiculous amount of reps without understanding periodization. The list goes on, but it depends on what people value. I've been very fortunate, like the position I came into now here at Illinois State. During the interview process, my head coach doesn't have a goalkeeping background, but values having someone in that role to help the goalkeepers. And that conversation has decided me to go, I'm going to change what I've done for the last 8 years and move 6 hours away to this completely new role, because I feel like there's going to be value here. That there's going to be an opportunity to build something with someone, with a head coach who gets it.
Nice. Well said. Jeff, I've been watching you take notes. I want to hear your opinion.
Eric, just to add on what Ali said, right? So it goes back to anybody can do the X's and O's, right? But as goalkeepers, we need a lot more than that, right? I know we do know. I know this is probably not the topic, like the mental aspect of the game that a goalkeeper needs. As goalkeeper coaches, we've all been there, and we all understand that position because we play that position, and we all know that that is a very lonely position. It's a very very high spotlight position also at the same time, because one mistake it could cause you to lose a championship, or one great save can cause you to win a championship. But so I feel like as a goalkeeper coach, we bring with the experience, we also bring a lot more than just the X's and O's and the corrections and everything else. I feel like we bring the mental aspect of the game in, where we can talk to them because we understand the struggles that they go through. We understand, like, if they make a mistake, we know what it feels like to make that mistake. Like, they don't, like a head coach doesn't know that. The head coach is like, you made a mistake, then now you cost us a game, where we can approach it in a little bit different way because we know what that goalkeeper is thinking, feeling, etc. So that's my 2 cents. Well said.
That's what, Jeff, I want to hear your 2 cents if I could, and then I'll start another conversation with a different question with you again after we hear from you right now, please.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, I was taking notes because all of them are great points. So I was trying to, there was so many great points. Even, I mean, and the last one that Michael just talked about was, I mean, we are the advocate for the goalkeepers, right? No matter what, if it's college, collegiate, or youth, or any pro, it seems like the goalkeeper coach is the advocate, is like you're saying, they need that person there to vent to bounce off with. And we know that the head coaches are usually a little bit definitely out of their realm when they talk about the goalkeeper. So they look to us for that advice, or to kind of explain to them why our goalkeeper didn't catch the ball. That's what they always want to say. How come they didn't just catch it? So totally agree with that one. The volunteer coach for me, yeah, that's a hard one when we talk about the younger kids, where, you know, we all started as the younger kid to be the volunteer coach, but it still goes into the culture of it. You know, if we talk about who made these decisions. So we know that at some point NCAA, we could say, made these decisions, but they had to come to the head coaches of the soccer programs and get their input. And I believe that culture needs to change, where the head coaches definitely want to make sure the 3 assistants would have been their field players, and the goalkeeper coach was pushed a little bit down the side. So I would definitely think that it needs to be revisited of how that all could come out, and that's why we're here. But the other part of the volunteer, and on my side of it personally, and, you know, with our union, you know, we have some very big time named coaches within our little alliance that we don't need to name, but we know that they're at some very high profile schools, and they're volunteers, right? And so when they've asked me to come in also and do a volunteer work, and the first thing is, you know, coach, we can afford you. We understand that. So if we could do something to if you come in and just volunteer, maybe we could get you money for camps, but maybe just come in an hour of the 3, or maybe come in twice a week instead of 5, you know, or, you know, come just maybe if you could come to the game when we play the home games on the Friday or on the Sunday, you know. So they always try to downgrade it all, and I'm just like, I can't do that. That's what are you doing for your goalkeeper? So you only want me to be there an hour, and then maybe twice a week instead of the 3 hours or the 2 hours, or afterwards in the game film or the weight room or anything, to just be on campus with them. So it's to hear that part of it, where the volunteer coach, and I guarantee you, like I said, the ones that we know that are at a high areas of schools, they're told the exact same thing, because I've been there, where it's not right, and it's a disservice to the collegiate athlete, for the goalkeepers that, like Andreas was talking about, are there for the development, right? We're not bringing in these goalkeepers to technically make them better. They should be pretty technical. We're going to define their techniques, but we're looking at the tactical part of it. We're making sure that we take them to that next level, and part of it is the game film, being able to watch and assess and see their positioning, their communication, and their timing off of certain things, so they could tweak their game and get to that point of being a full soccer player instead of just a shot blocker, right? And so we need to be there for that tactical development. So there's so much that we bring to the table for that position, where it's the climate needs to change, and somehow it needs to happen. We see it. Club's no different, but that could be a whole different another topic.
Yeah, let's not touch on that yet. That's a whole nother podcast.
But it comes from the same people, right? So
100%. And what I'd say truthfully is, I mean, if we bring in someone at a younger age, and again, not denying that there are quality goalkeeper coaches at that age, but when we coach, we have to coach 5 elements of development. I firmly believe in that. Your technical, your tactical, your psychological, your physical growth in regards to your social, your leadership capabilities. And I think you need experience with that. I really do. I think you need people who have that capability to communicate and educate and develop on all 5 of those. And if you're missing, or if you're only focusing on one, then again, I think the goalkeepers are the one getting shortchanged in this. And I think we're pricing out, because there's no pay or no revenue or income stream to experienced goalkeeper coaches who just want to focus on goalkeeping. And I think some of the best goalkeeper coaches out there don't coach in the collegiate game because there's no income, because there's a family needed, because there's so many things that we don't receive. We go do other things based on opportunity costs. We run our own academies. We're director of coaching, our director of goalkeeping at a club, to Jeff's point. And, you know, those are good paying positions with the same, if not less hours than coaching at the NCAA Division I level. Mm-hmm. And I find that interesting. And can we bring in someone who's a coach that's going to help minimize injuries based on technical capabilities. And Jeff, you're right about that. I think that if you're at that level, your technique is probably just needs some refining, to be honest. But at the most part, can we coach the tactics? Are there coaching requirements? We haven't spoken of that. I think Ali mentioned that in his opening statement regarding coaching requirements for the goalkeeping position. That's not a requirement right now. I'll ask all of you, leave it open. Should that be?
I've spoken on this so many times because it's still, again, me being from England, I still remember when I first came out here 9 years ago now, that it still blows my mind that there are no set criteria for coaches, honestly, at any level, go club, college, whatever. At the club level, I believe if you're an ECNL club, you have to have so many B licensed coaches in your club. Or if you're a GA club, I think it's very similar. But apart from that, it doesn't really matter. You go to the college level, there are, I say maybe half of college coaches might have a B or A license. The rest of them they've been there for a long time or whatever, the list goes on. But there's just never a opportunity for there to be like a standard requirement if you want to be coaching at a specific level. Unless you go to the pros where, you know, most of the time if you're a head coach, you have to have a pro license to work at a pro club. If you're a assistant, you have to have your A to be working at a certain level, etc. But to kind of go off that a little bit, it's hard to get qualified here when there isn't goalkeeping licenses available. It's why so many of us, or as many of us that are aware of it, will go to other places to get licenses. So currently I'm undergoing my UEFA B goalkeeping with the Scottish Football Association. Great way to go about it, just because they do fantastic work on the goalkeeping side. This is their first international goalkeeping license that they're doing, which we're basically kind of trialing and erroring right now, which is going quite well. But there are only, I believe there's four American-based coaches on the license, and all four of them are collegiate coaches. But they're aware of it enough to go into that license, versus there's I know quite a few directors of goalkeepings at clubs who haven't gone down that pathway because it's just not available, or they don't know about it. I do think there has to be a standardized get qualified. I think there has to be. But I don't know
what's the standard, everybody?
So
if you agree, do you agree? First and foremost, go ahead, Michael.
So I do agree with Ali on that. But I also feel like, because don't forget, we are the only sport that requires licensing.
Yeah.
Right? We are the only sport that requires licensing, and I think we have to do a better job educating our parents, especially in the younger, if you're in a club level, that they need to understand that, when you're out here coaching soccer, you have some kind of licensing, right? Whatever. Like, I have my B personally, but you know what I mean? I feel like a lot of people, that we have to educate the people to understand that to be a soccer coach, you have to have licensing. Like, we are the only sport that requires licensing. Now, I know for the college level, a lot of college coaches, to go back to you, Ali, they don't require a licensing because the athletic directors are like, you need a bachelor's degree, or you need a master's degree, or you need a doctor's degree. It just depends on the college. And they're like, oh, you have a bachelor's degree? Okay, you go be my head coach for the women's side, or you go be my head coach for the men's side. They don't ask for licensing. Like, I know I have some, I'm not going to name names or colleges, but I got some friends that they're coaching at the college level. They have their A's and their B's license and stuff like that. But not at any point were they ever asked that question. They were only asked, what degree do you have? Oh, you have a bachelor's? Okay, you qualified.
Yeah. So
I think people need to get educated and understand that to be a soccer coach at some level, that you require to have certain licensing, and it takes time, it takes money to do all that. Like, it's not, like, I just did my B license. I spent $2,000 and a little over 6 months of my time doing it. But I don't think people understand that as coaches, that is something that is a requirement for us to be, coaches, especially if you want to coach, like you said, in ECNL, GA, all those other, programs out there, or even, because it's not really a requirement for the college level as much as it is at the club level, which is crazy to me that if you're an ECNO club, GA club, you require X, Y, and Z on coaches with A's and B's and C licensing. But on the college level, we don't even care about that. The only thing we care about is a bachelor's degree. Mm-hmm. So that's a miscommunication right there, just alone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Brett, Andreas?
I come from a different cut on that. I'm one of the old guys here, kind of from the Cruyff vein, where I can also say every bad driver on the planet has a license.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, I do believe in education. Yep. I think you should be constantly going after it. For me, licensing and education are two completely different things. In the U.S., it gets a little bit muddied because the pressure of education is put on the licensing program. Whereas in my background, you know, in Germany, licensing was from the federation, and it was to ensure a minimum standard at whatever they were licensing. Yep. The education was much more handled by the club, and it was more of the kind of the old school apprentice style, which is really what basketball, football, all these coaches, you know, how do you judge if these guys are going to be the next great head coach? Well, you look at their pedigree. Who were you, the assistant coach? Who did you learn under? Blah, blah, you know, so forth and so on. And there's a lot of great coaches out there that have, you know, once again, go to basketball or football. There's a lot of great coaches out there that have no licenses, but they're fantastic coaches. So I'm a little bit mixed on it, but I 100% agree that there should be a minimum standard. Whatever, you know, if you want to say licensing, I'm okay with that. Like if you want to put it out there. And this kind of goes back to that first question on, you know, it really does cross over into even some protection of the kids' issues. You know, right now you've got at the collegiate level, it's a performance level. Some of the ADs will argue with you. We have no requirement to develop. So when you try to throw that out to them, sometimes it'll fall on deaf ears because they don't. College is not meant to be the training ground for the pros. They'll say we're not the junior leagues. So we have no requirement for that. But at the same time, there are some safety issues. The collisions are higher. There's some physical safety, especially with keepers. You know, the impact forces. Everything is much higher. You've got kids being overtrained. That honestly, if you don't take care of it, it's going to end up in a lawsuit at some point. Someone's going to sue a school because they'll say this was readily available knowledge that you shouldn't have trained a kid 5 hours a day. You know, whatever you know was going on. But the other thing that I think will be interesting on the tail end of this COVID thing is going to be the mental health side of it. And you are really, you know, and of course this week in the goalkeeping community, it's a little bit pointed issue. So I want to go to that issue in particular, but in general, even not the extremes. If you go back to the mental health of any athlete, let alone soccer or whatever, and you start looking at these ratios of coaches and players, you know, can a coach really effectively monitor the mental well-being of these students when they're doing, you know, 15, 20, 30 at pop and trying to take care of them? It's going to be a question the schools are really going to have to look at. And you know, you're going to have another reason to justify that you should probably have somebody on staff, whether you're going to call it the goalkeeping coach or, you know, some other mental health dedicated professional, something. But I think you're going to see that kind of come out because it's coming. I mean, everyone that works with youth kids knows this is a wave of issues coming, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. So we're going to be dealing with this for a while. So I think you're going to have to see some kind of adjustment at the collegiate level.
Andreas, regarding coaching requirements, a lot of good points being made. Who's responsible?
I'm not going to make this long, even though I want to.
Go ahead.
I actually agree with Brett 100%. Just because you have an A license doesn't mean you can relate to people and relate to mental issues or know how to handle it. I have people calling me every single time for, you know, to coach for my academy here. And I got this license and that license. Now, I value license. Don't get me wrong. I value it because people have an invested interest. They have skin in the game. You know, there's a standard. And I think it's important, but educating and knowledge and licensure, I think you're kind of different. But to go back into the collegiate for goalkeeper coaches, number one, I think they should have some type of minimal coaching license. I think there should be a goalkeeper license. The fact that they're very limited here, maybe until that happens, some form of experience, I guess, whether at an academy level or at a club level, or if you did volunteer. But I think if you want to understand the entire game, even though we specialize in goalkeeping, my license is a C license. I have no desire to get a B license or an A license because I'm focusing on youth development. And I think if you have the passion, the drive, and the inclination to always want to improve the person and the goalkeeper, you can do that all the way up to the pro level. But in the collegiate level, yes, for safety reasons, for mental health reasons, for liability reasons, you need some kind of licensure. I don't think as a goalkeeper coach you need an A or a B, in my opinion. I think you should have a minimum standard within the coaching licensure, some type of experience or certification, so to speak, in regards to as a goalkeeper coach. And that'll, if you just go with bachelor's, if you add licensure, I think you'll eliminate some of these graduates that actually become your trainers, so to speak. So yes. Yes, I believe I don't think it needs to be a high level if you have the experience. It goes into so much more, but I'm trying to keep it.
Yep. No, that's okay. And I'm gonna continue to dive deeper. We all seem to agree on that. Who's responsible for enforcing, and what's the minimum per division? D3, D2, D1, because we don't have that head of licensure over here in the United States. Is it based on experience? And if not, who is responsible for the licensing of goalkeeper coaches? I'll leave that open.
No, I was just going to say that when you get into, and I completely agree with Brett and Andreas as well, like licensure and education are two different things. I think being around people, being mentored, building that experience is so important. I do think that it gets difficult if you don't know how to access those people. And then it also gets even more difficult if you end up getting a little bit arrogant in that role because you've already been elevated to a role because you've just played that. And then that coach who's going to hold them accountable is probably not going to be the head coach who's just giving them that role. They won't do it because they technically be what they've just done. So how does that person go and find a mentor? That's the next step. Then how can they get more educated in that role? I was very fortunate. I came up through with Manchester United, so I was there for 10 years. I got to be around so many fantastic coaches that mentored me and helped me grow as a coach, as an outfield coach, as a goalkeeper coach. But not everyone gets that fortunate to be around that sort of thing. So even though that was great for me when it came up to moving over here, it didn't necessarily translate that entire experience. So some people might see something on a piece of paper that says, okay, you did this, but how are we valuing it? Are we valuing it on a face value of someone's held this role for 2 years? Or are we actually going to delve a little bit deeper and say, well, what did they actually do? What did they build? What was their education in that place? Like, it just depends on what approach a head coach wants to take and what detail they're looking for. I think that's something that can get a little bit messy. Because I know people that, on their resume says they did this for so long, but then you look into the details of what they actually were doing, it's not what it says on face value. So.
Other comments? We have around 5 minutes left, guys. Keep going.
I like what Ali just said right there. It's just because that's a huge part, and I think a lot of times we're so lucky sometimes of our role as the goalkeeper because we get to become on these amazing staffs of these head coaches or just coaches in general that have so much knowledge of the game, and that's why it's odd when we do, like what I said in the very beginning, we have so much more to give than just the goalkeeping, because I think if we are a student of the game and we are that sponge and we've been around these programs and different, different avenues, like you're saying, that you're in the pro ranks, or if you're even, I know in being in the college ranks, the ODP ranks, just being involved with these coaches that they have so much to offer, and so many different styles and so many different organized styles or management styles, or just soccer knowledge itself, to be able to grasp all that education that we receive, because we tend to be around a lot more. We move around, we help each other like entities, like I said, college or high school or club or ODPs or PDPs, where we're able to just grasp all that, and that education just is immense. And then when we do get involved in a collegiate role, we really can go in and say, yeah, I'm the goalkeeper coach, and that's what I specify my training in. But if you want me to run a session, I can run a session as well, from the back to the front, to the front to the back, because we've been blessed to be around so much great coaches. So the education part in that is very, I love what you said there, and it's definitely probably more education I've got around coaches than I ever have in the licensing, I guess you could say. So.
Others? Okay, we're quiet. It surprises me we're quiet. Brett, talk.
I think one of the things, I do think there's a couple of things that can help the cause. I think the parents have to get involved, and part of it will be groups like UGK and everything have to kind of raise an awareness, and then somewhat arm them with some of the corresponding facts, so that they know how to have an intelligent engagement with the university. Because there's plenty of practical grounds for a parent to say, look, we're the paying customer here. There are certain things that should be happening, shouldn't be happening, are happening in other instances, not happening in these instances. There's some things where I think you can kind of go there, because where they can brush off a coach or a coaching staff fairly easily if they want to. It's a little harder to brush off a group of parents. Obviously, one parent maybe you can, but as the fire grows, I think you'll see a university has to respond whatever that complaint is. And so I think that's one of the things. And then, like I said, we kind of go back to one of my first comments. I think the groundwork for solving this is already somewhat laid out. And what I mean by that is, the few times that I've seen like I've moved the needle with administrative, and it's not always been the athletic director, it's been someone above the athletic director. But I've said, look, from a recruiting standpoint, I'll go back to that. And I say, look, we bring in, after you subtract scholarships, we bring in revenue equivalent of 30, whatever the number is. And I say, what's the value of that? And I said, that's the cool thing. You've already established the value of that, because that you pay your recruiters. You have people dedicated to recruiting, and they have quotas. And so you have already scaled what the value of that recruitment is. Cool. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's just use your scale. And, each school is different, right? Sometimes a recruiter has to bring in 30 kids a year and then do a bunch of kind of general purpose, put some noise in the background kind of information. Other ones will say you got to have 100 kids, whatever the number is. The nice thing is the university's already established 100 kids is worth a salary of $40,000 or whatever the metrics are. Cool. Great. Let's use that. And if 100 kids is worth 40,000, then, 30 kids is worth, a fraction of that. So let's go with that. Let's do the math. Cut me a check. We'll go get a keeper coach. And at that point, it's a little hard to deny, because you're not using really end of year arguments. We're not using, the passion of the game, the dedication of the coaches, all the stuff that, at some level they understand, or they care, or they don't care. Now you're using their arguments. Look, you set these numbers in play. We're just telling you they're doing the same job. They're just doing a different format. So, pay up.
Well, honestly,
I love that.
I agree.
I love that argument. I really do. Yeah. And especially if the soccer coach or the soccer staff is bringing in 25 to 30, excluding the scholarship, depending on male versus female. There's a lot of paying customers there that the revenues generated towards that university. So, why can't we find, and I'm not even, my whole point is I just want to see all Division I conferences agree to and push for 3 full-time paid staff members. I mean, we're not even there yet. And I think once we get there, then we can speak to even expanding upon that with some of the I don't know, it's called the Power 5. I mean, they have, I'm sure, plenty of volunteer coaches on their staff, but even then, there are needs for paying coaches in addition to that. But, you know, to get everyone on the same playing field is where I'd truthfully like to start at the D1 level. And it does differ with the other divisions, obviously, as well. Guys, let's do this. Let's quickly give your final conclusion or your final summary comments, and then we'll wrap it up from there. Ali, can I start with you, please?
Yeah, I completely agree with what you said, Erik. I think that once that kind of balances out at the top level, and then hopefully can begin to expand a little bit more. But for me, there's got to be an emphasis on education. There's got to be an emphasis on tying in licensing. There's got to be an emphasis on a minimum standard of what you need to be in a performance-based environment, which is what college soccer is. And I think that people need to be able to differentiate between that it's not a development, especially at the Division 1 level. It's not. It's a performance-based environment, so you have to have coaches there who know how to get someone to perform. And that doesn't necessarily mean bringing in someone who's a trainer. It has to be someone who can coach, who can develop, who can work with the mental health side of it, to what quite a few people have said. And we have to be able to value that. And that comes from head coaches, it comes from administrators to know that this is what we need to work in this program. That comes from education. It comes from knocking on a lot of doors and people actually getting it. How long that will take, I have no idea. Probably a very long time. But we are fortunate there are some places that do already have these values in place, and do already have the people in place to have a successful program versus some places that don't.
Thank you, sir. Michael Kappas.
I will have to agree with Ali and Brett on this. I think education. I think that is the key to this. If we can educate not just only the parents, where they can put the pressure on the colleges and those universities, but also think if we can educate the college coaches, the head coaches, the assistant coaches, the athletic directors, maybe even the president of that university, and educate them and make them understand that, hey, you know what, being a goalkeeper coach, I bring a lot more than just the X's and O's to the goalkeeping program. I bring, whatever the X, Y's, and Z's, whatever those are. But I think, again, it goes back to what Brett and Ali said, education. I feel like, again, a lot of people don't know. Again, we're the only professional sport that requires licensing, and a lot of people don't know that. And I feel, and again, I'm not saying like because you have your B or your A license or A Pro, it makes you a good coach. But at the end of the day, we're still required to have certain licensing to be able to coach. So I think that goes back to the education, making people understand that there is there is value to us in the program.
Nice, thank you, Jeff.
Just to round it out, with our topic was just basically trying to get the 3 staff full time, right? It's really what we're looking for. So it's and it comes. I still feel it comes from the head coaches trying to get there to make them understand the culture change. Some head coaches are great, like I said, they do understand our worth and our knowledge that we bring to the table. But if we're able to just let them understand that we have the coach and we have the assistant, and then the other assistant would be the goalkeeper coach. And then at that point in time, you could bring in a volunteer coach that could be of any aspect. You could bring in an associate coach. You could bring in another, grad assistant at that point that you bring in that could just, again, be that young kid that you're trying to groom. But for us to hear that we're going to bring you in as the volunteer coach and have the goalkeeper coach get help grooming, I just think that's where we're missing we're missing a step here. It shouldn't be you guys are going to be the young kids that get the volunteer goalkeeper coach. Why not let us have the 3 staff, and then you could have still a volunteer coach, a grad assistant, associate coach, whatever. And so there's still ample ways that you could bring in other people that might get paid by camps, but it shouldn't just be us, right? So that's my nutshell of what we have time for.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Andreas.
We got to be more loud and proud about the standards we set ourselves as goalkeeper coaches. And this is one platform of doing this. You know, if we can stop the, okay, I'll take it for less money, I'll do it for volunteer. The more there's a demand for that, we're not going to make the change. Again, there's time, there's opportunities. You know, I'm not totally against it, but if we're talking about collegiate here, and we got to elevate our standards, be loud about it, okay? And so that way they have no other choice but to have a goalkeeper paid staff at the collegiate level. And then my second thing, and this is what Brett is also doing, is we need more goalkeeper coaches to be head coaches, the ones that want to also coach on the field at the collegiate level. They're going to get to understand the position, the demand for the position. They're going to fight for the position. So if we can get more, and you're starting to see this more, we can get more goalkeeper coaches to become also head coaches that want to obviously not just specialize in goalkeeping. I think you're going to speed up the movement that will nudge the NCAA to make the change.
Nice. Brett.
I mean, you know, it's got to start somewhere, right? So I think it's you know, you got to get, you know, if the number right now is 2, then the next number is 3. So you got to start with something like that. I like Andreas's idea. I think we unionize the keepers. Every industry, industry needs a union at some point, so we'll unionize, and then we'll issue our set of demands, and we'll see where it goes. But you know, I like I said, I think I've been in a unique position, you know, from the get-go. You know, and Erik, and we've talked about this a couple times. You know, I was a midfielder until college, so I wasn't a goalkeeper until I got to college. And so I saw both sides of it, right? You really grew up in 2 different cultures, field players, you know, and keepers off here, there, and everywhere. And then I started mixing the 2 for the next several years. So I had a really interesting perspective because I understood why keepers were sometimes segregated. And then I also, you know, understood the frustration that comes with that, with being segregated from playing to coaching to industry to everything. So I think there's everything that goes around. Right now, I think the answer is kind of like what Mike was saying. I think the answer is education. We've got to understand, and part of that education isn't just beating out your perspective. I think we need to really invest and understand, like if we want to win the argument, sure, just keep screaming out what we want. But if we want to make the situation better, I think we need to craft an argument that's going to actually move the needle. So we need to understand who we're talking to. We need to understand their priorities. We need to understand what, you know, I can scream all day long about the value of goalkeeping, but if they don't care, then I pick the wrong argument. So, you know, with that being said, on the flip side, like I'm a huge guy, and even though I did kind of, you know, and I will rattle on licenses from time to time, but I will tell you, I'm a huge component of education. And I think any coach, but like a goalkeeping coach, sometimes you'll see, I've seen some that someone had mentioned earlier, and I don't remember who, I apologize, but keepers pigeonhole themselves as a keeper coach. And I completely agree with that. I think some guys kind of put their head down and I just do keepers and I just do, you know, diving drills and high pressure drills and things like that. And I move on. And for me, that's not even a coach. I think if you're a coach, I don't care what position or otherwise, like you have to be invested in continually learning. And, you know, and that's any coach. And so part of it is we have to educate the other side of the table, but part of it is I think we need to educate our side of the table and say, look, we need to do more to represent ourselves because we're allowing them, I say them kind of pejoratively, but we're allowing them to attach no value to us as keeper. There's a reason, and it's not just them. We've somehow played into that so that there is no perceived value. So I think it's on both sides. You know, I think more keeper coaches should invest, either spread their wings or add something else they want to do at the collegiate game or the pro game or the youth game. You know, there are other things that you bring to the table other than X's and O, like everyone said. But I think we need to really develop those things so that you have a larger claim of the value that you bring to the table. And, you know, and then at the same time, I think you work on the other side. So I agree. I don't know if it's a fight, but it's an educational process, right? And, you know, I think you got to be ready to fight at times. But I think it's more of a discussion and a progression. But groups like this, I think things like this, you got to kind of get a spark. That's where we're at right now in the process, in my mind. So we got to get a spark going, because you got a lot of people murmuring in shadows and complaining about it. But you got to get some kind of spark to go to action. So I think groups like this is how it starts. And hopefully people listen to this, and 3 more people want to join the discussion, and so forth and so on. So I mean, that's my take on it. But
well said.
No, all you want to say. I'm going to end it with my quick opinion too, if I may. This is a culture change. This is not going to be something that's going to be done overnight. We need to educate decision makers, and that starts with head coaches, who are ultimately the ones who are going to need to demand this from their ADs and their decision makers, to push the conferences to go to all 3, and forcing all Division I conferences to hire 3 full-time coaches. I mean, that's a good start as far as I'm concerned. We need to educate the NCAA and the United Soccer coaches in regards to why this is important, because right now, if we're working with our goalkeeper coaches or volunteer coaches, and we're hiring inexperienced people to cut their teeth, they're just trainers. And that's something that we're shortchanging the Division I student athlete. We're shortchanging the goalkeeper at that university by not being able to coach. Because we should, I think, at the Division I level, we should be putting a goalkeeper coach in there who can speak to all 5 elements of development of the goalkeeper. Not only the technical, which the trainers currently do, but also the tactical, the psychological component, which is huge right now. And we spoke to that. And the physical development, in addition to the social/leadership. There's a lot that goes into the goalkeeper position that I think a lot of head coaches don't understand. And it's always been that way, has been the argument. Lastly, the biggest question mark to me is, licensing, education. Who's responsible for that? What is the standard, and who enforces it? And these aren't answers I think we have the answers to, or these aren't questions we have the answers to. But I think we do need to take all of this and get in front of the right people, so we're all understanding what both sides are coming at the argument for. And it's not even an argument, it's just, can we shed light on an issue that we as goalkeeper coaches firmly believe in? Guys, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you as coaches, as people, and I appreciate your time tonight. If anyone has any questions, comments, or thoughts on this topic, you are more than welcome to email info@unitedgkalliance.com, or you can reach out to me personally at 781-424-3028. On behalf of everyone on the staff, on the panel tonight, in addition to the United Goalkeeping Alliance, thank you. We appreciate all you do, and looking forward to see you on the pitch. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.